All right, we're a week away from camp. Let's talk about safeties. Arguably the best, strongest, deepest position on the Texans roster, safety. You can make a case that there is no position group that the Texans have more strength at than the safety position. Now, obviously, if we're just talking about the top and the starters, edge and corner is where you look. They got the best edge duo in the league, and they got the best corner duo in the league. But after that, there's a lot of questions. When it comes to the safeties and it comes to all the options that DeMeco Ryans has and all the different ways in which he can attack opposing offenses, the safety position leaves a lot of possibilities and a little bit of uncertainty with someone who may or may not be a part of things. It is SNL, Landry Locker holding it down for Cody Stutes. He's out there gambling. Who knows what the hell Cody Stutes is doing, what the heck he's up to. But he is out in Louisiana acting a little bit crazy to say the very least. He's acting a little. We will stand by. Let's hear from CJ Gardner-Johnson and what he's got to say.
New team. What has it been like emotionally for you and the process of buying into what they do here after everything you've gone through in a short time?
I think this was a great move for me. I think it allowed me not to get too comfortable. People understand, like, I was comfortable where I was at. It was easy. When I say easy, it was I had resources I could easily access, people I could just go talk to. I think moving here, being an older guy, I actually have to grow up. That's a funny statement, but growing up and teaching guys, like, it's more than just football. Being traded multiple times, I think people overshadow it by the things I've done in the league, but in reality, I just love playing football. I think I wouldn't be here if I didn't love football. I think I would still be in the league if I didn't love football or play with the passion I got. So I think the emotional state for me right now is cool. I mean, you can't get too much business, but I know there's other guys that depend on me when I get to the team, so I got to make sure that I'm where my feet are. And mentally, I'm doing what I need to do.
And that's one of the more interesting guys in CJ Gardner-Johnson who they brought in. And he was on the pivot. That kind of got a little bit of attention the other day. But CJ Gardner-Johnson, someone who a lot of people are excited about. Now, how does CJ Gardner-Johnson fit in? Let's hear from Jalen Pitre. Here's what Jalen Pitre had to say about being a leader and incorporating that with CJ Gardner-Johnson.
Kind of balancing, you're kind of one of the guys that DeMeco and Nick talk about as like a leader of what y'all are trying to do here. How do you balance someone who's been where you want to be with CJ and incorporate what y'all have already established with what he brings into the mix?
I think the biggest thing for myself is just not thinking too much of myself, trying to be as selfless as possible and trying to understand that, I'm growing as a player and we're obviously growing as a team. So we can never, come to a situation where we think we know it all. I think that's the biggest thing. Me in the past where I've, struggled, feeling that I've, think I've made it or I feel like I've mastered this. Like now I'm trying to approach everything with the mindset of like, we're never going to be finished. Like it's always another step to it. So I think, like you said, CJ is going to bring that. Obviously, we have a lot of coaches on our staff and other players that have been to where we want to go. So it's just all about us all having an open mindset to continue to learn and continue to challenge each other on a daily basis and hold each other accountable on the field, in the meeting room, running sprints, like all of that stuff. It's going to look different for everybody depending on, like the communication and how everybody takes it. But it's all about, challenging each other and being open to, growing.
Other question is Jimmie Ward. Is Jimmie Ward going to be a part of this? This is what DeMeco Ryans had to say about Jimmie Ward when I asked him. And this was pre-off-field stuff.
Jimmie's doing fine. Jimmie's on the road to recovery as well. He's doing fine. He's out of his boot now. He's starting to get back into running a little bit. So he's in a good spot. And Jimmie is a great football player. I love Jimmie. I love how he plays the game. And again, same whenever Jimmie is ready. I know Jimmie can help our football team win games. We saw him make game-changing plays for us, big-time plays in big moments. And whenever he's out there, he'll do it. He's a football player. It's what I love about him. He's played multiple spots in the defense. So I'm excited to see just whenever he's ready, it doesn't hurt to have a lot of good safeties on your team. Jimmie's doing fine.
Ain't no doubt about that. And we know that DeMeco loves Jimmie Ward, and there's a lot to love about Jimmie Ward, football player. We don't know whether or not Jimmie Ward is going to be there. This is, of course, what happens when Stutes is in here. Y'all tell me when the mic sounds good. Hold on just a sec. Had the daughter in here messing around, and I don't want to blame the daughter, but yeah, that's kind of what happened. So give me the thumbs up in the chat when the microphone. She did bring me this baby though, so I did get a doll out of the experience. But tell me when the mic gets right with the thumbs up in the chat. It's good now. Okay, it's good now. Okay. All right, there's some talk about mic stuff. So we're good. Okay. So here we go. Let's talk about the safeties here on SNL. Shout out to everyone for coming through. So we are very, very good now. Let's start with the guys on the roster. Calen Bullock. Now, Calen Bullock is an interesting case study. I asked Calen Bullock at minicamp what he feels he needs to improve the most, and he said recognition. Now, the talk has been strength since Bullock came into the league, but really, I don't know that he has the type of frame to where all of a sudden we're going to see Calen Bullock put on 25 pounds of muscle. I think we can see him get more cut up. I think we can see him get stronger, but he's not going to be one of those guys that we look at and say, damn, Calen Bullock really is jacked and looks like it's some people just don't have that type of frame. And I don't think he's that type of guy. Now the question is, how does Calen Bullock complement CJ Gardner-Johnson, who we'll talk about in a second, and how does Calen Bullock improve upon year one to year two? The reality of the situation, and we'll talk about Jalen Pitre in a second, is the last time we were this high on a rookie safety, it was Jalen Pitre, and Jalen Pitre had a very, very disappointing year two. He had a very, very disappointing year two, and obviously it was a different system. DeMeco Ryans did find a way to use Jalen Pitre, but from year one to year two, it was very disappointing. It was a little bit surprising. I don't know that happens with Calen Bullock. Quite frankly, the surroundings are better, and it is the same system, but the overall maturation of Calen Bullock and the recognition which he spoke of, that's going to be something interesting to see. But the one thing we do know already about him is he is an elite ball hawk and he is a playmaker. And there is going to be opportunity with these guys coming off the edge and the cornerbacks that he has to his right and left. There's going to be opportunity for Calen Bullock to make plays. So that's number one. You feel pretty good about Calen Bullock. Next player is a guy that they brought in. They got rid of Kenyon Green, and then they brought in CJ Gardner-Johnson. And CJ Gardner-Johnson, he's done a lot of talking. He's done a lot of winning in the league. It'll be interesting to see what he looks like in this defense. Be interesting to see what he brings as far as the edge, the nastiness. And the other thing to maybe watch is if things don't go according to plan, like how does he handle himself and how does it mix in the locker room? It's hard to imagine this defense being bad, but if things go bad, how does CJ Gardner-Johnson handle it? Right now, he's said a lot of stuff. It's kind of hard to follow everything that he says, but CJ Gardner-Johnson is a guy that, thank God they brought him in because of what happened with Jimmie Ward, because if you didn't have Gardner-Johnson and he was going to start regardless over Jimmie Ward, we would think safety might borderline be an area of concern. But they were able to get a guy that Philadelphia was going to move on for monetary things, and they were able to bring him in. So CJ Gardner-Johnson and Calen Bullock, those are your starting safeties. You feel really good about them. It's not as good of a top two as what you got at corner or on the edge, but it's pretty solid. And the depth and the other options that you have around them make it even more interesting, starting with Jalen Pitre. Jalen Pitre last year, they found a role for him, and it didn't appear at first. It kind of appeared to be making do with what you got because Christian Harris got hurt, but now it looks like it might be the way they play defense. I saw that Gardner-Johnson on his interview on the pivot kind of referred to Pitre as a linebacker. Some talk about him as a slot corner. This is going to be the Texans' base defense. Now, the question is, there's a couple of things. Number one is last year just the beginning of better things to come when it comes to Jalen Pitre. Last time we were high on Jalen Pitre, again, kind of a fall off, different situation. And the other question when it comes to playing this position, I think there's a couple of things. Number one, is he going to be able to physically hold up at that size, that close to the line of scrimmage? Last year, we saw him get banged up. It's a very physically demanding position. And the things that they're asking Jalen Pitre to do for even a massive safety, it's a lot. It was part of the reason why Jimmie Ward, when he first came to the Texans, and we kind of had the joke about it, that he didn't really want to play nickel because it's not good. It's not good for your body. Now, Jimmie Ward gets hurt no matter what. We've kind of seen that, but that's part of the argument. And Jimmie Ward is a bigger guy than Jalen Pitre. So will he be able to hold up? The other thing is, as you get more and more film and looks at what Jalen Pitre's weaknesses are, do opposing teams kind of attack Jalen Pitre a little bit more in coverage? That's another question that I think we're going to have to keep a close eye on. And I anticipate that he's probably going to get challenged a little bit more than he did last year. Now, that on the back end of being a safety, but starting safety, traditional safety, a couple of years ago, teams were just completely picking on him. We saw him get benched in the regular season game against Cleveland. Do they start doing that in the nickel? It's something to keep an eye on, but it's also might be just part of what the Texans' base defense is. So Jalen Pitre's an interesting guy. They obviously love what he brings to the table. He's kind of one of their culture guys, and they rewarded him with the contract on the soup.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
Trill Kick X says hasn't happened since '85, but what's the chance this defense leads the NFL in sacks and INTs? I mean, when you have the best edge duo and you have the best corners and you have good safeties, I wouldn't bet on it because it's something that you just mentioned hasn't happened in 4 decades. But that seems like you have everything that you would want when it comes to potentially making that happen. Now, injuries are obviously a part of the game, but when you have the best edge duo, you have the best corners. You're talking about sacks and interceptions, and both of the corners they have pretty good ball skills, paws. And they're able to go get the ball. So, I mean, I would say probably not likely, but I would say you have everything that you need when it comes to that whole thing. Next one, MJ Stewart. MJ Stewart is just kind of a depth guy. They love MJ Stewart. He obviously contributes on special teams. I think he might be one of those guys who kind of develops into a larger role, kind of like a Eric Murray. When Eric Murray first got here, it was kind of an eye roll because he was overpaid and he was overvalued by Bill O'Brien and Jack Easterby, although Jacksonville just kind of overvalued him again. So maybe they knew something. But he kind of developed into a good depth guy. And whenever you needed him to be there, he was there. It's never going to be all pro caliber type of stuff. But MJ Stewart is a guy that is a good depth piece who they really like. And that's really that. The next one, the most interesting guy on this list, and I think he would have been near the top, but now we don't know whether he's going to be on the team or more. And it's DeMeco Ryan's guy, Jimmie Ward. Jimmie Ward is one of the first guys that DeMeco Ryans called when he got the head coaching gig with the Texans, and he brought him here. He's talked about Jimmie Ward being kind of a guy that, in Azeez Al-Shire, guys who know what he wants to do, what he's about, and kind of one of those culture guys. Hasn't really traveled well with time given the offseason, but there's always been kind of a special place in DeMeco's heart for Jimmie Ward. So we'll start with the personal stuff, the personal level between DeMeco and Jimmie. We'll get into him as a player, and then we'll conclude it with the speculation. But on a personal level, DeMeco Ryans and Jimmie Ward, they've been through more together than anyone else that either one of them has been through in their football life. Now, how much does that matter? What exactly does that mean? Does that mean that Jimmie Ward might get a little more leniency than someone else would? I don't know. But I've never heard anyone say anything bad about Jimmie Ward. Based on everything that's been put out there, I don't have like a strong opinion about what did or didn't happen. But we do know, and we've documented this from the second. Like, there was a video on this channel. It was a new channel at the time. No, it was about a year in the game or less in the offseason. Boom. We talked about the bond between Jimmie and DeMeco. And DeMeco, you just heard earlier mention how much he liked Jimmie Ward. So I imagine this is going to be one of the first questions that Nick Caserio gets asked, because the off-field stuff happened after off-season activities concluded, and they broke in anticipation of camp. But the personal level of Jimmie Ward will be interesting to see from a player standpoint. And let's just pretend that Jimmie Ward is healthy, he's good to go, and he's ready to play. I think this is one of the best reserve safeties that you could possibly ask for in Jimmie Ward. He's awesome at nickel, and he did a hell of a job filling in for Jalen Pitre last year. And again, this is just to the side. This is part two. We talked about the personal stuff. Now we're talking about him as a player. He filled in very nicely for Jalen Pitre. He had the immediate pick six. He was the best nickel, one of the best nickels in the game 3 years ago. He's got starting safety experience, and he's also played corner before. And you don't have a lot of depth there. Now, he is a little bit older. He gets hurt a lot. But if you're talking about Jimmie Ward as someone who's backing up Gardner-Johnson, Bullock, Pitre, whatever, that is a Swiss Army knife of depth when it comes to safety. So whether or not he plays or not is to be determined. They haven't really said anything about it. They haven't had to meet with the media since this whole thing happened. So Jimmie Ward, your guess is as good as mine as to what may or may not happen. And maybe we'll get an idea within the next week. Maybe they do something before camp. Maybe they do something the day of camp. Maybe they just let it play out. Who knows? But we do know that Jimmie Ward and DeMeco Ryans are tight. There's a lot of uncertainty when it comes to the off-field stuff. On the field, if he's playing, and we're separating that, he is a hell of a depth piece. Borderline elite depth piece. Now, how long are you going to have it? That's another question. Next player, and I was a big fan of this guy, and I found this pick interesting, but Jalen Reed out of Penn State, caught up with him at the combine and asked him about why he liked the Texans so much. Because all this guy was doing was he was up there and he was talking about, I love the Texans defense. I like what they do, blah, blah, blah. So I asked him in Indianapolis, hey, can you elaborate on that? What do you like about the Texans? And this is what he said.
What do you like about the Texans defense? I really like that they're a young team right now. They building, they in a rebuilding stage, and it seems like they're coming up right now. They got a lot of young players that's young and talented. There's not a lot of players that's on their $100 million contract. So it's players over there that's really trying to get to that. And I like that. That's the way they play out there each and every game. So I like the guys that they got over there. They just drafted a safety last year, Calen Bullock. He had like 7 interceptions this year. I feel like he's a difference maker. Kamari Lassiter, he was a huge difference maker coming in. They got the all-pro Derek Stingley. I feel like them 3 guys right there. Jalen Pitre, too. I watch a lot of him. So I feel like them guys right there are difference makers. So I feel like they're a good defense.
All right. And he said he had talked to the Texans, and then, they take him. Despite the fact that they got Jalen Pitre, despite the fact at the time they had Jimmie Ward under contract, they took him. And he's a lot like Jalen Pitre. And the biggest observation that I had that most of you heard right here on the channel and on the locker room was he's doing exactly what Jalen Pitre does in practice. And when you talk about this potentially being the way that they want to play defense, I think Jalen Reed is an interesting guy to keep an eye on. And I think he kind of has a lot of the similar skill sets that Jalen Pitre does. And I like this pick. I questioned the Pitre contract for a number of reasons, one of which was I thought there were a lot of guys that were capable in the mid to late rounds of doing similar things that were younger and probably cheaper. And I'll be damned, they drafted one of them anyways. So that's impressive. Final guy, Russ Yeast. I mean, this is probably the odd man out. All the other guys that we've talked about, you can imagine and you've seen as contributors on a DeMeco Ryans defense. But Russ Yeast, yeah, we'll see what that looks like. Maybe he's able to play his way onto the practice squad, but there's not much there when it comes to Russ Yeast. Not a lot to really talk about in that area. Let me talk about Bobtac for a sec. I love Bobtac because they're locally owned and operated. Bobby's been in the business for 45 years. His son Reed's been doing his thing for a while. And they're not one of these big companies taking advantages of businesses and causing you to kind of half-ass safety. Bobtac does not do that. You can call or text them 409-744-8225. And I said text because that's the actual number right there. 24/7 availability. They've had their boots on the ground like you have. Whether it's PPE, spill control, trucking, maritime supply, gloves, FR coveralls, protective clothing, all that. They got you covered. If you're in the chemical plants, trucking, maritime, all that, they got you covered. If you need safety supplies 24/7, they got you. Hell, they even got hydration. They got restaurant. They got everything that you need when it comes to safety, and they'll give you the best price. They'll work with you, and you'll develop a relationship that is going to give you more while you pay less. Whether you're in the oil and hazmat business, trucking, all that, they got you covered. Give them a call. They got the great prices. They got the unmatched customer service. And I got a lot of respect for Bobby and Reed for what they've done for a while. So we've gone through the players that the Texans have at the safety position. The next thing that I want to do is I want to ask the five biggest questions about the safety position, and then we'll do some questions. We're a week away from camp. I can hardly contain myself. A week away from camp. We have made it through the mud, and it was thick mud this year. This was probably, since the channel has started, this was probably the most, it was an exciting offseason, but it was probably a little bit uneventful because the channel is creeping up on 3 years. The locker room. SNL still very young in the game. But year one, you had the Lovie Smith stuff and all the drama. It started right then. Are they tanking? Blah, 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 blah. What coach are they going to? You could basically do a coaching search week 5. Then in the offseason, they had CJ and Will Anderson. They had that. They had all that cap space. And then last year, they signed Joe Mixon. They signed Stephon Diggs. There was the hype train. And then this year, this is kind of a traditional offseason, which is good. That means you've come a long way. That means that you're not drafting at the top of the draft. It means that you want more cap space, but you have more players that you're willing to pay. So it's been a relatively quiet offseason for the Texans, but the safety position has been far from quiet, which brings us to the landlocked 5 questions about safeties with Cody Stutes out there doing bumps and rolling craps in Louisiana. The landlocked 5 questions about the safety position. Number 1, one of the first questions Nick Caserio is probably going to get asked. What's up with Jimmie Ward? Are they going to let this play out? Are they going to let the league handle it? Are they going to be a little bit lenient? How are they going to handle the Jimmie Ward situation? Now, we didn't know how he's going to recover from his injury in the first place. Hell, he might be out there. Maybe the league will have to step in. Who knows? Again, I follow stuff as close as I can. If I had an opinion on it, I would tell you, but I haven't heard anything on this case to where I know or have a grasp of what didn't happen. And I always try to, whenever we're covering this, whether it's the Deshaun Watson thing or whatever, despite the fact that there was times where I was critical of Deshaun Watson after he signed his contract, kind of got a little materialistic, kind of changed it up. I always try to be fair to him when he was going through what he was going through too, and you kind of let it play out. Unless you hear some details. I haven't heard anything from this that leads me one way or another as to how the Texans or the league is going to handle it. But we have seen situations where they let it play out. The guy's on the field. We've seen situations where they go on the exempt list. We should probably get some clarity about this in 7 days. It'll be one of the first questions that myself or Cody Stutes asks Nick Caserio and probably DeMeco. But we'll see what happens with Jimmie Ward from a football perspective. If he's good to go, I do think very, 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 very solid depth piece at safety. There aren't too many better, despite the fact that he can't stay healthy. So that's question number one. What will happen with Jimmie Ward when it comes to the safety position? Question number two, what does Pitre look like in year 2 of the role? We saw last year. It was great. Good job by DeMeco Ryans. DeMeco Ryans, if he's not anything, he is a damn good defensive mind, and he did an excellent job of maximizing Jalen Pitre's skill set last year by using him the way he did. And they were so pleased by it that they put their money where their mouth was. They always talk about how important Jalen Pitre is, and he appears to be full go. He's ready to go. What does he look like in year 2 of that role? Is that kind of the base defense? That's question number 2. Question number 3, will Bullock build on his rookie season? We've seen a couple of guys that have had good rookie seasons, and then the next year there's kind of some disappointment, and the best is not necessarily immediately yet to come. What does Calen Bullock look like? Now, we know that it's not like he's going to play his way off the field, because the skills that he possesses are elite when it comes to being a ball hawking safety. The question is, could he play his way into being just a solid 3-down guy? The recognition, because there were some low points last year that kind of stuck out, that led to big plays. Is he able to kind of minimize that? You can't completely eliminate it at safety. The teams are too good. The rules are set up against the safety, and there's going to be times where you're kind of the guy that everyone's looking at when a touchdown happens. But can he minimize the bad plays, and can he at least recognize, as he said to me at minicamp, where he needs to be? That'll be something interesting to keep an eye on. That's question 3. Question 4, what is the CJ Gardner-Johnson impact? What does it look like on the field, off the field, the juice, all the stuff that we keep talking about? What does it look like? That's one of the more intriguing things. And fortunately for them, they made that move, especially given the uncertainty of Jimmie Ward. But I think there's a large portion of people that thought you probably should have improved the safety position in front of Jimmie Ward, which they did before all the off-field stuff happened. And question 5 is Reed a Pitre starter kit. We just heard from Jalen Reed at the combine. I told you that he's doing the same practice routine that Jalen Pitre had been doing. Is that something that they use? And the other thing about that is there's a chance that if the answer is yes, we're going to see him in very meaningful situations, because if that is the way that they're going to play base defense, and if Jimmie Ward is not there, he might be next man up when it comes to playing that position. Or they could go more traditional, but I think he's probably capable of doing it. Is he going to be capable of doing it, if called upon week 7 or something like that to start? Might not have a choice. So I think that was a luxury pick. And I would imagine that the vision they have is he can kind of be someone that can spell Jalen Pitre in that role. So keep a close eye on that and how they use him, because I think there's a lot of possibilities there. And it just kind of adds to what we mentioned off the top, the excitement and the intrigue of the safety position. Few of the comments before we get out of here. Knuckles says our history has us hesitant, but realistically, we could make history with this DeMeco team. Yeah, I mean, if you're saying history when it comes to the Texans, the bar is kind of low. Like, you got to make the AFC Championship game, which the overwhelming majority of teams have since the Texans got here. So I would agree with that. And I hope that that's kind of the standard. Luke Durrett says Bullock is built like a corner but plays deep safety. Yeah, that's true. He also hounds the ball like a corner / safety. So he does his thing. Mike Jones, who says Bullock dropped at least 4 interceptions last year. He'll be great. Is that a case for or a case against? Patrick Ding says chances CJ Gardner-Johnson lasts the entire season with us. I think good, but I'm not sure. That guy Steven54 says El Gallo is not good. I'm sorry, bud. Had to be one of the worst restaurants I've ever been to. That's a lie. that is a lie, and it's always the ones with the dog pigs. There's no way it's the worst restaurant you've ever been to. You got to order the enchiladas, do your thing, tell them what's up. But that's a troll right there. That's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Patrick says, I think they're there to bounce out Pitre's putrid coverage. Yeah, they did a nice job of kind of hiding his coverage last year. And it did seem like teams kind of ignored it. SNL's not a year old at all. No. The locker room, which, by the way, today in the locker room, Bill O'Brien's offense is back. I don't know how that makes you feel. I can kind of sense some of y'all kind of throwing up. Bill O'Brien's offense is back. How does that make you feel? We're going to talk about that at 10:30, and I'm going to bring the receipts to show you that that's the case. So keep a close eye on that. That's tonight in the locker room at 10:30. If you missed the preview with Mike Meltzer, you might want to go back and check that out. But not SNL still going. Still doing our thing. I think we're 300K in hours watched at this point. Stutz is knocking boots. That is a fact. Don't know what exactly he's doing. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. Corey says, just hopped in. I'm ready to move on from Ward. I was so confused by the extension. Extension never made sense. So no one here is going to justify giving him the extension they gave him. I think that was part of being one of DeMeco's guys. But once the extension was done, I do think he's a useful football player. And it's not necessarily set up to where they can retrieve a ton of money. Now, if the league steps in and he gets suspended, then maybe that becomes more easy. But yeah, I think there's a number of ways of talking about Jimmie Ward. There's a number of layers. But the extension never quite made sense. But once it was done, he is a useful football player. So I will at least give him that. That is the safety preview here on SNL. Shout out to everyone at the start. I came in here and the evidence was left as to what happened with the mic. The evidence was left right there. Some of these baby dolls are kind of creepy though. But the evidence has been left on the floor. So there is that. Subscribe, like, ride along. Camp is a week away. We will be inside a week tomorrow. I can hardly contain myself. Appreciate y'all for rolling through. Cliff says that Lake Charles is 15, 20 minutes from him. You should go pull up on Cody. Just go run up on Cody. You'll find him. Do your thing. Subscribe, like, ride along. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Shout out to Bob Tack. Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.